Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, and welcome to this first episode of a series I'm planning on the 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's letters. Srila Prabhupada wrote more than Srila Prabhupada Sorry, I need to stop one of the two because I'm on Zoom and I'm also on YouTube. Okay, sorry for the glitch. Okay, so I was saying Srila Prabhupada wrote more than 6,000 letters. And these are an ocean of information about how the founder Acharya managed, guided, instructed his disciples in their contemporary situations, and of course, for the future of our movement, for the future of ISKCON. We see in this letter Srila Prabhupada's in action, advising in disciples, and writing also to other people like God brothers or members of the public. And we see how he instructed them in such a personal way. So today we have the letters that today have the anniversary, 50th anniversary. They were written 50 years ago today. So the letters of 25th of April, 1973. It's amazing to think it's already half a century has passed. So some of the receivers already left the body, some since long time, some may be still alive, but it's 50 years ago. But they're still very fresh because we could see how personable and how relevant are the instructions. Some are very personal instructions, not to be imitated or adopted artificially, but some are universal instructions. So today we have 5 letters, and they are, first of all, a letter, one to the wife of a devotee who unfortunately was taking drugs, one to a Gurukul teacher and a pujari, one to 2 local devotees who had given a donation of $60 to Srila Prabhupada, one to a bank manager, and one to a devotee doing outreach in the Chicago area, in the colleges. So these were all written from Los Angeles, which at that time was considered the headquarters, the Western headquarters of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So let's start. The first one is to Chaitanya Dasi. It's a bit of a sad letter because obviously it's very problematic. So I read, I'm very much disturbed to hear of Kanupriya's activities. Kanupriya's was her husband. And I advise you that so long he is engaged in these nonsense activities, you should not have any association with him. Best thing is that you remain in the association of devotees and take part in the temple worship here, not separately. Worship of Radha and Krishna is not cheap thing. It cannot be done whimsically, but it must be very careful executed under strict regulation. Not that there can be LSD taking and all sinful activities and then deity worship. So I'm not going to read all the text, only that which I find most representative, most relevant for all of us. You can all find all these letters, for instance, in Vanipedia, the vanipedia.org, where you'll find all these letters. But I'm taking excerpts. Srila Prabhupada also say you have got a very big responsibility to give your daughters a good Krishna conscious atmosphere for developing into nice devotees. If you also take up the sinful activities and neglect the principles of Krishna consciousness, then that is a great misfortune. Your first consideration must be to see that your children become Krishna conscious, and if your husband will not take his responsibility, then what can be done? Simply, you must keep to the principles and pray to Krishna to help you. So I was looking at other letters to get some background. So Kanupriya Das was initiated in 1969. So he was already initiated since four years, which at the time was not a small thing. Then Chaitanya Dasi was initiated a couple of years later, in 1971. And they were actually apparently very, very good missionaries. There is one letter from 1971 that Srila Prabhupada said, I'm so pleased to hear how you, husband and wife, are doing so nicely in Trinidad. I can see that the response to your preaching work has been very good. You will be glad to know that I told Kanupriya, if they're willing to make a donation of that house and land, I'm prepared to go there with deity and make the installation. Trinidad in the Caribbean was opened up by Kuntanatha and Sharadia, the couple. Then after they moved to Guyana, Kanupriya and Chaitanya Dasi took over. And then it seems they have apparently two twin daughters, Draupadi and Gandhari, because there's a letter in which Srila Prabhupada mentioned both of them in September 1971. But then, unfortunately, in 1972, in December, Srila Prabhupada writes to Bhavananda Prabhu, he says, I've heard one rumor from Garga Muni that Kanupriya and I agree are smoking ganja. As for Kanupriya, and at that time Kanupriya was not in the USA, although apparently he was from the USA. And Srila Prabhupada says, as far as Kanupriya, if he returns to the USA, he will not stop this nasty habit. And it will be worse if he goes there than if he remains in India with his family. So he may remain wherever he likes in India, but he must live separately from the devotees. And if he continues this thing, he may be requested not to associate with any of our devotees further. Again, 1975, so 2 years after our today's letter, he says, he writes to Revatinanda Maharaj, and he specifically tells him that give up the association of Jamadagni and Kanupriya. Their company will not be beneficial to your Krishna consciousness. And that's the last of a record of this unfortunate accident. This devotee somehow, with the two children, wife, he somehow got involved, at least for a couple of years, 2-3 years, was involved, and then we don't hear anymore. There's another Kanupriya, just to go on record, there's another Kanupriya was initiated in November 1975, but that's a different one. So, letter number 2, this time to more positive letter, we could say, and this is to Dina Tarini at the Dallas Gurukul. And Srila Prabhupada said, I have received also the photograph of Radha Kalachandji, and they are looking transcendently beautiful. Always keep to this high standard of deity worship, never become neglectful. Everything must be done very timely, and the temple must be immaculately cleansed daily. These things, cleanliness and promptness meaning punctuality, are the most important points for deity worship. So be very vigilant in this way. So although this is a personal letter, we can extract this universal principle. Srila Prabhupada said, cleanliness and punctuality are the most important point for deity worship. Opulence, it's secondary, but cleanliness, Srila Prabhupada said, immaculately, the temple must be immaculately cleansed daily. And of course, punctuality. Then he writes, so far opening a Gurukul in England, first let us establish our new building there, and we can talk later on. And the new building was this Bhaktivedanta Manor, which was donated by George Harrison of Beatles fame. So obviously a much more positive letter from someone, obviously there was not any particular problem. She was doing deity worship, and she was doing Gurukul service, and she was apparently very enthusiastic also to expand to England, to another continent. Third letter, this time to two devotees, Mahajan and Sharanagata. They were from Los Angeles, so they were local devotees. And Srila Prabhupada say, I'm in due receipt of your note along with the $60 dakshin, which, I mean, at that time was substantial. In fact, we see sometimes Srila Prabhupada thanking devotees for much smaller donations, $15, $10, and so on. So $60 was substantial. Of course, I don't know what these devotees were doing, how they were earning, but it's a medium, nice donation. So he instructs them in a more, we could say, general way. He says, you must always keep very strongly to the principles of Krishna consciousness, rising early, taking bath, attending Mangal Arti, chanting at least 16 rounds on the beads daily, reading our books, going for Sankirtan as much as possible. These things, if strictly followed, will keep you always in a purified condition. It will give you spiritual strength to defeat Maya. And when this body is finished, no more material bodies, but back to home, back to Godhead. This Krishna consciousness is so nice, so sublime. Take it and be happy. Now, here we could start, we're not going to start, but we could start the whole theological discussion, because sometimes the devotees think, okay, well, what does it really mean to go back home, back to God? What does it really mean, or what is actually required to go back home, back to God, to get liberated? And here Srila Prabhupada is quite clear. Of course, it's still a tall order to do all these things for all life. I repeat, rising early, taking a bath, attending Mongolati, chanting at least 16 rounds, reading the books, going for Sankirtan, or, of course, being engaged in other services. So these things, if strictly followed, will keep you always in a purified condition, will give you strength, and will give you spiritual strength to defeat Maya. And Srila Prabhupada makes a statement here, which is very powerful. When this body is finished, no more material bodies, but back to God, back to home, back to God. This is a guarantee of the founder, Shai, and follows rigorously his process, which he gave, and no more bodies. Wow. Okay, the fourth letter, it's a particular letter because it's to a gentleman named Mr. Leo C. Elfenberger, and to the Swiss Credit Bank of Los Angeles, with the copy to the head office in Zurich, Switzerland. So Srila Prabhupada says, in your Zurich head office, the manager told me that there would be no charges for depositing checks. So there is no difficulty to send you cashier's check but there cannot be any charges. If you can confirm to me that there will be no charges for depositing, then I can send you checks. So please tell me what to do. Now, obviously here there's no direct instructions for disciples or for ISKCON, but it gives you the example of how particular Srila Prabhupada was. He spoke, for instance, about scientific accounting. And here it's very peculiar, very particular, not peculiar, sorry. It's very particular in saying, okay, I want to bank with your bank, but you should tell me, and I'm ready to give you checks, but there should not be charges. In other words, you should not take money from me just for give you a check. And Srila Prabhupada was very, very punctilious about even this small thing. Imagine 73, the movement was expanding all over the world, and he already had so many disciples and projects, but still it takes the time to a bank manager, to write to a bank manager to make sure that they would not charge for depositing checks in their bank, Swiss credit bank. And he's so precise that he even sends a copy to Zurich to make it sure. So the value of Krishna's money, of not wasting anything, at that time there was so much money flowing into ISKCON, there was so much book distribution, but Srila Prabhupada was careful, even maybe for a few cents, or I don't know exactly what could have been the charges, but imagine you're running a world organization and you take the time to write to the manager, or making sure that no money is wasted. Okay, then we come to the last letter for today. It's a very enthusiastic letter, we could say. It's to Sri Govinda Das Adhikari. He was acting in the Chicago area. And listen to Srila Prabhupada's words. Your report has given me unbounded pleasure. And I very much appreciate your activities. Your university program has given me much satisfaction, so try to continue it. Yes, they must appreciate my Bhagavatam because it is nothing business, but is a matter of realization. In other words, apparently the university were buying the books, they were appreciating it, and Srila Prabhupada would say, they must appreciate because it's nothing business, it's not a commercial enterprise to write these books for the pleasure of the readers, but it's the words of God with the pure devotees commentary. It's a matter of realization. And it says many things. Then it says also, your paper also I like very much. It's very nicely done. But as we have the Back to God paper, then there is a handwritten note. You have talent to write, please go on writing articles for BTG. This is not the first time I encountered such an instruction. Definitely Srila Prabhupada wanted the Back to God magazine not only published, but he wanted to engage all those who had talent for writing. And he didn't want to really, I mean, at least this is not the first time I see a letter which somebody was writing something and Srila Prabhupada say, yeah, but write for BTG. I want that all you boys use your American intelligence cooperatively in spreading this Sankirtan movement. You are doing solid work in Chicago area, and I thank you very much for assisting me in this way. I'm pleased to accept the two boys, Sandipani Muni Das, Chris, and Madhavendra Puri Das, Michael, as my initiated disciples. You can send their bids with a copy of this letter to Satsarup Das Goswami for being chanted upon. So we see a glimpse of Srila Prabhupada correspondence today to various disciples in various circumstances, in various parts of the world, even to a bank manager. There are days in which Srila Prabhupada will not write any letter, or at least no letters were dated on that day, like 26 April 1973. There will be a few more on 27th April, and I do plan to make another reading of them. And sometimes it's one letter, sometimes it's two, sometimes three, sometimes four, sometimes it's five, depending obviously on how many letters he received or if he was traveling or not. So I hope you like this, sorry, these explorations of Srila Prabhupada's letter. It shows how the founder Acharya took care of his movement personally, even in the details. And please stay tuned. In a couple of days, we'll have a more installment, 50th anniversary of the letters on 27th April 1973. And there will be letters to some of the leaders, and we see how they were sharing all the, say, the burden of love of managing this movement, even in difficult circumstances. Today we saw a letter in which the difficult circumstance was a devotee having stopped following the principles and the process. In 27th, we'll see how where devotees were very strong and following the principle, were dealing with issues and problems in the mission. So, thank you very much for your attention. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri.